Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar. Here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. Iran stops all negotiations with the US and threatens to completely block the Strait of Hormuz, according to the state media. This comes after US struck military targets inside Iran and Israel orders a new bombing campaign in Lebanon. Crude oil prices climb more than 6%. Sensex and Nifty failed to hold on to opening gains and end near the low point of the day. Nifty drops below 23,500. Mid-cap see sharper cuts. Rupee remains around the 95 mark against the dollar. The chairman of Tata Trusts, Noel Tata, writes to the RBI opposing the listing of Tata Sons, says going public will risk its philanthropic mandate. Tata Sons chairman Chandrasekaran is non-committal on the listing. That's a money control exclusive. India and the US begin a 4-day talks in New Delhi to finalize the details of an interim trade agreement. US delegation is led by Chief Negotiator Brendan Lynch. Commerce Minister Goyal says the broader issues have been finalized, adds that smaller details like commas and full stops were being negotiated. World's most valuable company, Nvidia, takes AI to the personal computer, unveils RTX Spark superchip for laptops and desktops, set to launch later this year in new Windows PCs from Microsoft, Dell, HP, Lenovo, and others. SoftBank pledges to invest 75 billion euros to build AI infrastructure in France. This will be the company's biggest investment outside the US. SoftBank also surpasses Toyota as the most valuable company in Japan. Industrial output grows 4.9% in April on robust capital goods and manufacturing performance, but mining growth contracts. This is the first set of data with FY23 as the new base year and includes gas, water, sewage, and waste management activities. Automobile sales top street estimates in May. Passenger cars see robust domestic sales growth on the back of low base. Commercial vehicles underperform. Tractors see strong growth and a positive trend ahead. The RBI is unlikely to hike rates in the upcoming monetary policy this week. CNBC TV 18 Citizens Monetary Policy Committee votes unanimously for a status quo amidst geopolitical tensions and adverse monsoon forecast. Technical issues continue to plague the CBSE re-evaluation portal for Class 12 students. The website was supposed to go live today after crashing on the 19th of May due to heavy traffic. More than 4 lakh students have applied for re-evaluation. The United States has no leverage on China, and Trump returned empty-handed from Beijing, says renowned American economist Jeffrey Sachs. Adds that India should not side with the US against China, says Trump needs India more than India needs the US. That's an exclusive. RCB fans celebrate a second straight IPL victory indoors. No victory parade in Bengaluru after 11 fans were killed in a stampede last year during the celebrations. New Chief Minister of Karnataka, D.K. Shivkumar, is also expected to be sworn in this week. Well, the top story tonight, crude prices are surging as Iran reportedly pulled the plug on negotiations with the US over Israel's actions in Lebanon. Here are the latest developments. Iranian state media has said that Tehran has stopped exchanging messages with the US and threatened to block the Strait of Hormuz completely. This after Iran's foreign minister pushed back on the escalation of strikes in Lebanon by Israel. In a post on social media, he said, and I quote, "The ceasefire between Iran and the US is unequivocally a ceasefire on all fronts, including the Lebanon." End of quote. Now, the breakdown in negotiations follows Israel's expansion of its invasion of Lebanon, despite global condemnation. France has called for an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council after Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered evacuation in southern Beirut. This is the most serious escalation in Lebanon since the ceasefire was agreed upon on 17th of April. This comes amidst fresh skirmishes between Iran and the US. the U.S. carried out strikes on Iranian military targets over the weekend. The Pentagon claimed that the attacks were in response to what it called aggressive Iranian actions, including the downing of a U.S. drone operating over international waters. In response, Iranian forces targeted a U.S. military base. U.S. forces said that it successfully intercepted 2 Iranian ballistic missiles targeting American personnel stationed in Kuwait. Kuwait's foreign ministry has condemned what it calls heinous and repeated Iranian attacks.
We're focused on being postured and prepared to re-engage if we have to. I mean, this is a high-stakes negotiation. We've got the best negotiator in the world leading it. Iran may not want to give up their nuclear ambitions, but we believe at the table they can and will over time, given the right set of incentives. But the most powerful incentive is the capabilities we have there right now, which they can't ultimately defend against at any real level. And those are decisions in the future the president will make based on how this ends. But I feel confident that he'll get to a deal that serves the interests of the American people.
Violations of the ceasefire are themselves indicative of U.S. misconduct and bad faith and merely intensify the existing mistrust, which rightly must always remain in our minds in any interaction with the American side. These U.S. actions are not merely violations of the ceasefire, they constitute an act of aggression and a violation of Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the United Nations Charter. They entitle and authorize us, in line with the right of self-defense, to undertake corresponding defensive measures.
We're on to the day's market action. The market failed to hold on to opening gains, with Nifty ending below 23,400. The Sensex fell over 500 points and 25 out of 30 constituents ended in the red. The broader markets underperformed while Nifty IT ended higher. Now, India's Met Department has said that it will take another 3 to 4 days for the monsoons to reach Kerala. The IMD also told CNBC TV 18 that showers are expected in Maharashtra in a week. After that, the entire country will receive monsoon showers in 45 days. Pre-monsoon showers and thunderstorms are expected to begin in South Konkan region by the 3rd of June. India's industrial output grew at a pace of 4.9% in April. This is the first set of data with FY23 as the base year. Robust performance by capital goods and manufacturing lifted growth, even as mining output contracted. Apart from the change in base year, the IIP data will also include gas, water, sewage and waste management activities. My colleague Sapna Das spoke to the Secretary at the Ministry of Statistics, Saurabh Garg, on the new data.
The April data is a robust 4.9% despite the broad geopolitical situation. And I think the IIP reflects the domestic production capabilities and outputs that are actually happened. And if you look at the last 1 year's data, or even if you look at the last 3 years' data as per the revised series, it shows that, number one, it is higher than what the previous base year had reflected, which shows that the structure of the economy has significantly changed.
Well, the government's fiscal deficit for FY26 stood just over 15 lakh crore rupees. This translates to 4.4% of India's GDP and in line with the government's budget estimates. The fiscal deficit in April stood at more than 21% of the target for this financial year. Now, commercial LPG prices were hiked across major cities from today. However, oil marketing companies have kept prices of domestic cooking gas unchanged. In Delhi, the price of a 19 kg commercial LPG cylinder has been increased by 42 rupees to over 3,110 rupees. In Kolkata, the rate has gone up by over 53 rupees to more than 3,250 rupees. The under-recovery on domestic LPG is pegged at 650 rupees per cylinder. Domestic jet fuel prices remain unchanged and oil marketing companies are losing around 30 rupees per litre. Now, the Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme 5.0 has received a record 2.62 lakh applications seeking credit support worth 1.7 lakh crore rupees. An official of the Department of Financial Services said that the government guarantee attached to the sanctioned loans has reached 1,500 crore rupees. About 80,000 applications have been sanctioned, translating into a credit flow of more than 35,000 crore rupees. Now, the automobile sales have topped streets estimates in May. Passenger cars witnessed robust domestic sales growth on the back of a low base, while commercial vehicles underperformed. Sudarshan Kumar brings us more details. Sudarshan, take us through the numbers.
So it's been a mixed trend that we are getting from auto companies for the month of May. If you talk about two-wheeler sales are looking largely in line to slightly better than expectations. For passenger vehicle, on the low base, all the companies, most of them are seeing a healthy growth, especially Maruti Suzuki and Mahindra & Mahindra. And if you talk about tractor segment, more than the numbers for the month of May, what is important for the sector is the outlook. And Mahindra & Mahindra has maintained the outlook that it had given for the industry of mid-single-digit growth. But talking about the company in the details, starting with Bajaj Auto, for export, company continues to maintain the monthly run rate of more than 2 lakh units. Even on the domestic front, it has seen a growth of 10%, largely in line with its guidance. For TVS Motor, it was an all-round beat. All the segments have seen healthy growth of more than 30%. For EV, it was highest of monthly sales, and the growth here is almost 56%. If you talk about Eicher's Royal Enfield, again here also, sales were largely in line. It was at 1.03 lakh units versus our expectation of 1 lakh units. One segment that continues to do well for them is segment up to 350cc, where company has seen growth of almost 19%, while segment above 350cc has seen a decline. Talking about the four-wheeler, especially passenger vehicle segment, Maruti Suzuki has seen a huge growth on the low base. Entry-level segment has seen growth of almost 140%, and SUV, or say utility vehicle sales too, have seen a growth of almost 44%. For Hyundai, it was slightly lower than expectations. Both the segments, domestic as well as exports, have done lower than expectations, and total sales have increased by 4%. For Mahindra & Mahindra, both the segments have done better than expectations, and company has maintained the outlook both for SUV as well as for the tractor segment. Coming to Tata Motors commercial vehicle, sales were slightly below expectations. Total sales have increased by 17% versus our expectation of 24% increase. Ashok Leyland was the biggest disappointing this month. It's the only one company that has seen a decline in the sales, while all the other companies have seen a growth. Total sales for Ashok Leyland have declined by 3%, and the culprit here is that all the other segments except LCV. So LCV, if you leave aside, all the other segments have seen a decline. So we'll have to see how the next few months pan out. But overall, the numbers for the month of May were largely mixed.
Right, Sudarshan, thanks a lot for that. Now, India's GST collections rose to 1.94 lakh crore rupees in May. Government sources say that gross GST collections registered an adjusted growth of 9% YOY after factoring out a one-time 10,000 crore rupees spectrum-related payment made by a telecom operator in May of 2025. Now, collections were supported by higher import-related revenues and broad-based growth in economic activity. Well, time now for a money control exclusive. Sources say that Tata Trust Chairman Noel Tata has written to the RBI opposing any potential listing of Tata Sons, the holding company of India's largest conglomerate. Tata Trust is the controlling shareholder of Tata Sons, and its chairman N. Chandrasekaran was non-committal on the listing during the May 26th board meeting. As per sources, Noel Tata argued that listing the Tata Sons could alter the long-term character of the group's holding company and disrupt the philanthropic objectives of the trusts. The Enforcement Directorate has arrested realty businessman Vikram Wadhwan in the IDFC First Bank fraud case pertaining to the Haryana government. The ED has also detained Pushpinder Singh, former Deputy Vice President of Kotak Mahindra Bank in the Panchkula district. Money laundering case. Both the accused have been arrested under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Now, India and the US have begun four-day talks in New Delhi to finalize the details of an interim trade agreement. The US delegation is led by Chief Negotiator Brendan Lynch. Additional Secretary at the Commerce Ministry, Darpan Jain, will lead the Indian team. Sources say that tariffs imposed by the United States under a law used to target unfair trade practices will be discussed as well. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said that 99% of the first tranche of the interim agreement has been finalized.
जैसा आप जानते हैं कि अभी अभी यूएस के एम्बेसडर मिस्टर सर्जियो गौर ने भी कहा कि 99% चीज़ें तय हो गई है, छोटी मोटी कॉमास और फुल स्टॉप्स पे चर्चा चल रही है। फाइनलाइज करते वक्त जो वहाँ पे बदलाव आए थे, कानूनी बदलाव आए थे यूएस में, उसको किस प्रकार से फाइनल एग्रीमेंट में रिफ्लेक्ट करना, उसके हिसाब से किस प्रकार से बदलाव होगा, उसको तय करके मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि यूएसए के साथ भी जल्द से जल्द हम बायलैटरल ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट का पहला ट्रांच खत्म कर देंगे, साइन करेंगे और आगे की चर्चा चालू करेंगे।
Well, speaking of trade deals, the India-Oman Trade Pact offering zero duty access to a range of Indian labor-intensive exports kicks in today. The Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or CEPA, was signed in December of last year during Prime Minister Modi's visit to Muscat. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has said that over 10 consignments being shipped right now will avail preferential duty access in Oman. Furthermore, UK Secretary of State for Business and Trade Peter Kyle will meet the Commerce Minister tomorrow. For the leaders will discuss pending trade issues and implementation of the India-UK Free Trade Agreement. Now, here's a CNBC TV 18 exclusive. Noted economist Jeffrey Sachs has said that USA cannot win the war with Iran militarily and has no option but to end this conflict and go home. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, Sachs added that the United States has no leverage on China and that Trump returned empty-handed from Beijing. Sachs further said that Trump needs India more than India needs the US, reiterating that India and China must continue to boost their bilateral relationship. Here's an excerpt.
We're very close to resolution if the United States will face reality. Basically, this was a war that was supposed to last one day. Israel and the United States thought they would chop off the head of the Iranian regime, put in their own leader, and that would be the end of it. Of course, this was proven wrong within hours of the first strikes on February 28th. Since then, the situation is clear. The United States cannot win militarily. Since last year, the U.S. has no hold over China on anything. The United States doesn't produce anything that China is desperately in search of, not even advanced chips, because China's rapidly advancing its own capacity to produce semiconductors. When the Nvidia chips were offered in this summit, China said, no, thank you. So basically, China has the upper hand right now. They respectfully greeted President Trump. They showed him some pomp. They acted they treated him with dignity, and they sent him home empty-handed. What India should remember is that Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal. The Supreme Court ruled them illegal. I made this point many times in India last year. Trump does not have the legal authority that he claims. And Trump needs India more than India needs the United States. This is another point, so strike a good deal. India should not be part of the Quad, period. This is a U.S. blatant anti-China maneuver. India doesn't need to be part of an American maneuver against China. India and China should work on their own bilateral relations. They're the two giants of the world. Between the two, they constitute almost 40% of the world population. They should not let the United States get in the middle of their bilateral relationship, which indeed is a very important one. Still less in something like the Quad, which is absolutely directed against China. India should not allow itself to be played in that way, in my opinion.
Well, you can catch that entire conversation with economist Jeffrey Sachs at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. And with that, it's time now for a short break. But coming up, world's most valuable company, Nvidia, takes AI to the personal computer, unveils RTX Spark super chip for laptops and desktops. Details when we return. Welcome back. Now, AI giant Nvidia has announced a new chip for personal computers called RTX Spark. Speaking at the event, CEO Jensen Huang said that this chip will be the reinvention of personal computers. Rachna Dhanrajani has the details.
RTX Spark, that's what Nvidia is calling its first chip built for the PC. Unveiled by Jensen Huang at Computex in Taipei, it combines an ARM CPU with a Blackwell GPU on a single die, 128 gigabytes of unified memory, and the ability to run 120 billion parameter AI models entirely on your laptop. No cloud, no data center. Just the machine in front of you, 30 plus laptops from Microsoft, Dell, HP, Lenovo, who will carry this chip when it ships later this year. Huang, who danced onto the Computex stage to a roaring crowd, has built Nvidia into the world's most valuable company as we know it, and it's all been on the back of data center chips. But now he has signaled the next frontier is the PC itself. But the announcement lands against a complicated backdrop. On Sunday, Washington moved to tighten export controls on exactly these kind of chips. The US Department of Commerce published fresh guidance clarifying that a license is now required to ship advanced AI chips, including Blackwell processors, to subsidiaries of Chinese companies operating outside of China. A potential loophole has now been closed. So Nvidia finds itself in an interesting position at this point, dancing on one stage in Taipei, navigating tighter regulatory ground on another in Washington. So Huang has a big task cut out for himself, but as we can see, he's dancing his way through it.
And well, speaking of AI, Japanese giant SoftBank has pledged 75 billion euros over the next 5 years to build 5 gigawatts of AI data center capacity in France. French President Emmanuel Macron and SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son jointly addressed the media during the annual Choose France summit. The conglomerate said that it will invest 45 billion euros in the first tranche to develop 3.1 gigawatts of capacity in northern France. With this, SoftBank's project will be one of the largest European investments in AI infrastructure to date. CNBC's Arjun Karpal brings us the latest.
It was a huge investment here in Europe. It's the single biggest AI data center investment in the continent as it tries to catch up with some of the big deals we've seen over in the US as well. Now, France has been touting things like low carbon, its nuclear power here, and that's enticed SoftBank to make this 75 billion euro investment here. Now, as I was speaking to SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son, we discussed SoftBank's positioning. It's trying to be at the center of this big AI boom with its investment in companies like ARM around chips and its big $60 billion commitment to OpenAI around the models as well. And we talked about where we're at in this investment cycle right now. Masayoshi Son said that this is a 50 to 100-year journey around AI. He said this is just the beginning of AI, and he believes this is going to be 50x bigger than the dot-com boom. But I asked him, given the run-up we've seen in valuations in some of the public markets and the private markets, is he concerned about a correction? Here's what he had to say.
This is the biggest revolution of technology and civilization that mankind ever experienced. So this is just like a beginning of internet. Now this is still a beginning of AI. And I think the future is so big. This is just the beginning.
And like the beginning of the internet, we did see at the time the dot-com bubble. Is there any comparisons you can see at this point between what happened then and now?
I think this is like more than 10x, probably 50x bigger than .com. So even .com, there was a bubble and burst, but then right after that, the peak of the .com bubble, the year 2000, was not really a peak. It was like a small hill. And it went down, but then it went much, much bigger with a big profitable, free cash flow. So AI will be, this is a beginning, and the future of the profit and growth opportunities tremendous.
Well, technical issues continue to plague the CBSE re-evaluation portal for Class 12 students. The website was supposed to go live today after crashing on the 19th of May due to heavy traffic. More than 4 lakh students have applied for re-evaluation, and the CBSE is facing a crisis of credibility. A 17-year-old student's blog post has taken center stage in the row over the CBSE's on-screen marking system. Sarthak Siddhant reviewed tender documents on the Central Public Procurement Portal. In his post, he alleged that the board rewrote rules across 3 tender rounds to allegedly favor Hyderabad-based company Govt EduTech. I spoke to him earlier today to get a sense of what led him to do a deep dive into the CBSE OSM portal.
I did not do it of any personal grievance. I did not receive any blurred copies or mismatched copies. Now to the next thing, why did I do it? I was in a group chat with Nisarg Adhikari. He was the ethical hacker that hacked CBSE, CBSE's OSM portal. And we were discussing how Govt's on-mark solution was being preferred over other industry-leading platforms. So I started digging more onto this, what this on-mark platform was. It was being used by many fragmented colleges, group of institutions over India, more so over the South and Deccan India. I was just investigating because I like to delve deeper into documents. I just wanted to investigate why was Govt awarded this. I downloaded all the 3 tenders. I downloaded 2 tenders because I could not find the first one. And I started comparing them. I started reading them, and then I started finding discrepancies. And then I decided that these discrepancies are too much. I should publish a blog post on this. I did not think my blog post would do so many numbers, but I'm glad it did. And many people are aware of the discrepancies in the tenders. And I think that's a very good thing because it should invite some transparency through CBSE.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV 18.